simple negotiation techniques that can cost you thousands, that can save you thousands, sorry. So how do you, anybody here a master negotiator here? Okay. Yeah, like I thought I was really good at negotiation. I went in the MBA, I got this negotiator award. I was like, oh, I'm awesome. Going into the real estate industry, I got owned by those like sharks. And I just, like they were so aggressive, and I was just like, oh, I thought I was good, but no. Okay, so here are some common negotiation techniques that you can learn. Basically, when you go into a place, try to look at features of the property and add dollar figures to it. So like if you look at the flooring and it's kind of outdated, what's the cost of changing the flooring? The bathroom's outdated, what's the cost of changing the bathroom? Like, oh, there's a scratch. Oh, what's the cost of repainting? Like try to find like, be very picky. Try to pick out stuff. And if you pick out a bunch of stuff and you like pour it on during the negotiation process, chances are you'll be able to squeeze something from the seller. Because you'll be like, oh, I need money for renovation. Give me some room here. Chances are the seller knows that their property, you've indicated to the seller that their property isn't perfect. It isn't in move-in condition. So that really helps. That's kind of like common sense. Upcoming maintenance, like is the roof like 25 years old, but then the life of the roof maybe like 26 years old or 27. Like find out roof, furnace, hot water tank. Those are typical things that you should kind of get your eye on and then use that to negotiate. So one of the things I learned in negotiations course back in business school was a term called Batna. Anybody know what Batna is? Ooh, what is it? Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What does that mean? Just a backup. Okay. So like you find a property that you love, and you write an offer on it, but make sure you also have like a backup plan. If they don't take it, then I can still look at property like second best, the backup. Right? If you don't have a backup, you're kind of at the mercy of the seller. Okay, so like with that mindset, you might end up, you're just at a disadvantage. Make sure you have a backup of some sort. That's called the Batna. That's a term you should just incorporate in any sort of negotiation. One of the things that I recommend all my clients do, that most of you are probably aware of, do a home inspection. The home inspection is often used to identify issues with the property, but often they identify issues that are not known to the seller. And that's where you can kind of use that to your advantage to get to negotiate the price. So like if they find some mold, you're like, yes! Hopefully it's not really serious, but if it's a little bit, you're like, oh, it's like health issue, my baby's, mold. And, or if there's like, what a home inspector does is they go into your place, they have a moisture meter. So they usually go into the washroom and then they use their moisture meter and touch behind the tiles. And if there's moisture, then, the home inspector would tell you, oh, there's moisture behind it. It could be mold, it could be something else. And then you might have to take away all the tiles. And then to take away all the tiles, you need to take away the tub. And to take away the tub, you need to take out the toilet. And then start, it's going to cost like thousands of dollars. So that is awesome because then you can use that to negotiate. It might not be a big problem, but you can kind of exaggerate it and then make it bigger than it actually is and then use that to negotiate. Expanding the pie. Anybody ever heard of that saying? Yep. Expanding the pie? Okay, so great. You want to share what expanding the pie is, Rosin? Briefly.
Okay, so expanding the pie is the concept of if you feel that there is an upper limit to what you want. Oh, actually, no. let me backtrack. So expanding the pie is the concept of, let's say you have, the lowest offer that you'll take and the highest offer that you'll take. So, you always want to think about a range. But you always also want to think outside of that range. You want to be aware of what you're willing to accept, but also think outside of it. So maybe there's an alternative to the current offer that you haven't thought of. So really thinking outside the box. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so great. It's basically like when you negotiate, typically you're negotiating, most people negotiate on a one-dimensional manner. Price, back and forth, price back and forth. And that's, that's great, but it's kind of like elementary. When you start going to advanced negotiations, you start incorporating what I say. So if you're negotiating just on price, you're looking at it as a pie. I want 50% of the pie, or I want 80% of the pie, you get 20% of the pie. But instead of having just the same pie, why don't we just throw away the pie, bake a bigger pie, and put it there? Maybe we throw in a milkshake and like some large fries. Like now all of a sudden, we're not negotiating on that small pie anymore. You're expanding the pie. You're talking about things other than price. Let's talk about dates. Let's talk about deposit. Oh, it's tenanted. Oh, you know what? Let me like, I'm sure my price isn't great for you, but let me take over the tenancy. You don't have to kick out the tenant. I'll take over it. I'll do all of that stuff. You don't have to clean up. I'll take care of it. Or maybe, yes.
Or
Here you go.
Swapping intangibles for tangible.
Yes.
So I giving you, like I took over the tenant, whatever, and give him some leeway so he doesn't have to get rid of things he doesn't want to do.
Yes.
So that way, in a way, you're saving him money.
Yeah.
But in a real sense, you're not giving out any money.
Yeah.
Because you're going to rent it anyway. So
great.
So you're not losing.
That's
anything.
awesome. Thank you. What's your name?
Bill.
Bill. Thanks, Bill. So basically, not just focus on the price. Okay. So when I was talking to the veteran real estate investor who made me realize I know nothing about real estate investing, he said when he buys properties, he buys everything. He's like, I want all the furniture. I want your car too. I want everything. And then the seller's like, oh, okay. And then so sells them everything. And then he takes the furniture and he uses that to trade with the contractors to renovate his property. It's like, oh, can you renovate the bathroom? I'll give you this sofa. And like, oh, can you renovate this? I'll give you this car that I got too. And he uses that, and I was like, so ingenious. And like, I was like, wow, that's so smart. So like, this is what high-level veteran real estate investors, they do. They just think outside of the box, and they're doing like stuff like that. I haven't written an offer where I said I want your car too, but taking the furniture sometimes is common if the buyer likes the furniture. So the last tip I want to talk to you guys about for negotiation is submitting 2 offers. Okay, like most buying agents submit 1 offer to the seller, the listing agent. But have you thought about submitting 2 offers? How about you take this subject offer, subject to financing, subject to home inspection, all the subject clauses. Let's say the property is worth $500,000, is asking $500,000. You submit a $490,000 offer, subject to a bunch of stuff, like everything, subject to my mom's approval, something like that. You can write, by the way, subject to, you can write subject to anything, anything. You can say subject to my mom's friends, dogs, like uncle or whatever. You can say that, okay? Or you can, and then, so you submit the 490 subject to all this bunch of stuff to protect you, to get you out of the deal. And then you submit another offer. Okay, you don't want the subject clauses? I'll give you a 470 offer, subject free. No subject. I'm not going to do a home inspection. I'm not going to do anything. No, like, I've got all the financing, whatever. I'm not going to read the strata documents. Subject free, 470. So because I have to take on the risk of buying this property, not knowing if there's problems to it. So that's why I'm not going to pay for the risk. like if you want me to adopt this risk, I'm going to pay you less. So that's why I 470 offer. So then the seller is left with two offers. Okay, do I want more money? 490, but then there's a long subject removal period. Like, you know, it could take 2 or 3 weeks, and then the buyer might change their mind, which they often do. Or do I take this 470 offer? It's $20,000 lower, but it's like done right when I sign it. It's done. So one thing that you learn in real estate is time kills all deals. Time kills all deals. Like buyers change their minds very quickly. Sellers change their mind very quickly as well. So sellers know that, hopefully sellers know that, and so they know that, oh, if I have a subject offer, you know, they go see it during the subject removal period, they bring on some friends, and the friends go, oh, maybe this is a bad idea or something like that, and then the buyer's like, oh, having all these doubts, oh, I don't want it anymore. So the seller say, $20,000. So this is a technique to, you know, get yourself a better deal. Don't just write one subject offer. Try to write a subject-free offer if you're like, oh, if you're worried about the home inspection, do a home inspection beforehand. And yeah, you have to pay $300 to $500, but you know, when you buy a used car, you get a mechanic to inspect it, right? So you pay $100. You don't get that back. Same for when you buy a house. It's kind of like the cost of playing the game, right? You have to put in the money.